it? And how we can kind of initiate that fresh start from home.
Yeah, I think speaking from our own experiences, coming back to uni and being on campus has that sort of like fresh feeling, especially when you're about to start a new term. But we're going to be talking about how we can do that within our current situation and our current climate alongside Ruth. So she's going to give us a lot of tips and feedback, and also like just tell us a bit more information about what Faith and Reflection is and what it...
Fingers crossed this work. Hoping this doesn't happen like it happened last time. Otherwise, it's just going to be us talking for half an hour. Yes. Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Well, good. How are you?
Yeah, okay, thanks. I managed to get the children out of the way. I put them in a cupboard. I didn't really. They've gone for their daily exercise.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
nice,
very good.
Nice.
Very
Loving
good.
the jacket, man.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it kind of goes well with yours. We're all kind of wearing the same colours.
Yeah.
Yeah, we planned this.
Uniform.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, so I guess just to break it down for you as well, so we just thought we'd talk a bit about fresh starts, looking at the new term and how, people can sort of like see it that way and sort of start thinking about what they want to do throughout this term. And also just like hear a bit from you about who you are and what you're about and what Faith and Reflection is about and what it can offer. So I guess just to begin, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what Faith and Reflection is?
Sure. So I'm Reverend Ruth Wells, and I work part-time on the Faith and Reflection team. Other universities call it the chaplaincy team, so maybe that's a term other people are familiar with. And we support people, staff and students of all faiths and none, to kind of just be part of community. So we're here really to support human flourishing, to listen to people well, to provoke conversation and dialogue about faith and spirituality, but also just to be supportive, a listening ear, a safe space. That's virtual at the moment, but we have on campus a physical space when we're around and about. So my role is really to be part of a team that offers that. And I work part-time at the moment in a parish, so I work for the Church of England, doing weddings and funerals and baptisms and all those kind of things as part of my other role. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess just to like start off the conversation, in the current situation, we just wanted to hear or just give us an idea of like what has been like the biggest change for you, and how do you think you're sort of like getting back into it now, and how have you flipped it around for yourself?
Yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? I think for all of us, this unprecedented kind of thing, I think for me, there's been quite a lot of grief. And I think actually just acknowledging that in myself, that there's things that I've wanted to do that I can't. And some days I just have a little cry, which I think is reasonable and human. And just giving myself a bit of gentle space to say, oh, that's okay, it's all right that you want to go to IKEA and you can't today, or whatever the kind of silly thing is going on, or the big thing that's going on. So I think just being gentle with myself, giving myself some space. I've taken to not looking at social media too much. I just giving myself a break from that, because I feel a bit bombarded by some of the stuff that goes on, and a part of my other job is things like funerals and stuff, so there are things that I have to deal with which are quite big and quite heavy and quite weighty. So I think just having an escape from the constant kind of talk about COVID-19 and all that's going on, and I'm a big fan of watching something really rubbish on Netflix, or
I'm the same.
Total escapism really.
Yeah.
They have been really good ways of me kind of coping, and then just looking for some hopeful things and some positive things, thinking, what can I do? How can I use this time? And I think it's really interesting. The arts are really interesting in this whole time. The arts bring to this whole pandemic situation, and I write quite a lot, and I think, sometimes that feels really insignificant when, people are working in intensive care units and hospitals or whatever, but I think we all bring what we have, and actually for me writing is a really good way of just processing what's going on in my head and how I'm feeling. So just being okay with that and permissioning myself, it's all right to write and to sit and to have some space for that. That's not a luxury, that's something that I need, and I need to do. So they're my kind of things at the moment. I think lots of rubbish TV, a bit of writing, a bit of space away from social media, and yeah, just being gentle with myself.
Yeah, that sounds like you're really able to like just sink back into yourself, as opposed to like looking out into the world. And I think that's quite difficult for a lot of people. And I guess, yeah, this is something that we've been talking about within the Small Things Matter, the idea of oneliness and actually just getting back to yourself and enjoying your own company. So I wanted to ask both of you, like, what sort of things do you do to sort of give yourself that time? You've kind of answered that already, but like, what measures have you taken to get to that point where you're actually enjoying your own company now?
Georgian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So I quite, let's see, obviously, not being able to go out too much, and, kind of having an hour to kind of go outside and do some exercise. I think I just try to find as much to do at home with what we have lying around. So I'd like try to craft things, make things. Last week, I had an avocado for breakfast, and then I made some dye out of it. So I think it's just kind of finding ways and like doing a bit of research, maybe just to see what you can do at home and how much there actually might be around you. So I think that helps me. I think what I'm getting at is I like to be productive. Being productive helps me feel good, makes me feel like I'm on top of things. Because I'm a person who I get to the end of the day and I'm like, oh, how have I spent my day today? And that might be that I've read a book all day, which I've definitely done as well. Whether I'm kind of just making something, weaving something, writing something, like you say. I think, I just try to make use of the time I have.
And do you enjoy that?
And I enjoy that.
That sort of helps you get to that point,
How about you, Ruth? What would you say that you do?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think the productive stuff is really interesting, and that's one of the things I've been wrestling, because I think I'm a person who likes to do things and produce things, and I feel good when I've ticked off all the things on my to-do list. It's I put things in to tick them off. I'm that kind of person, I woke up, tick. And I think actually this time has been quite good for me in like stripping everything back and saying, what does it mean to be me, and what does it mean to be me when I don't feel productive? And actually I've had quite a lot of times where I felt really useless and like, I don't do anything, who am I, like existential crisis, what is going on in my and I think that's interesting in and of itself. Like, actually, what is going on there? Why do I feel like that? Why does my flourishing depend on me making stuff or doing stuff or achieving things? And that's quite painful, actually. So I have to give myself a break from thinking about that too much, because I think you can kind of get a bit like melancholy, and I love melancholy because I think, tortured artist, you have to like a bit of melancholy. Too much melancholy on your own is not good for you. But I think that idea about who am I when I don't produce things, or who am I when I feel like I'm not doing something. I listened to a really interesting podcast the other day which was saying that just being isn't passive. Like we talk about, you're just being as a kind of passive thing, but you're never just being, because your body is always active and doing things. But we have this sense of, I'm not doing something, I don't feel right. So I'm trying to like hold the tension of being on my own and not doing lots of stuff, and also doing the things that I like to do and bring me life. So reading and rubbish TV, and I've got 3 children. So life is never really still and calm and peaceful. And sometimes probably I crave a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think listening to both of you, I think I'm probably a balance between the two, because there's times when I know and within myself that, giving myself that time to just be is okay, and I'll sit there and I won't like move for like hours. But then there's other times where I'm like, I really need to do something, because otherwise it's just another day that I've spent not doing anything. So I think, I have that weird balance between, you know, it's okay to not do, but then it gets to a point where I feel like it's too much that I have to get back into doing.
I think there's definitely, because I think I've like done some reading on this, where there's definitely a culture where you base a lot of your kind of like day-to-day self-worth on the things that you've done in the day. Like, oh, I've done this many things on my to-do list, so I feel really positive about that. And then the other half of that is, if you haven't done something today, or like something that you can tell someone about, you feel like you haven't done much. And then there's like guilt that comes with that. And I think in these times, I think you need to be a bit kinder to yourself and maybe rethink how you think of oneliness and how you spend time alone. And I think that, you know, just forgiving yourself for maybe not being productive on a day is absolutely fine. Because, I mean, productivity, I mean, there's so many ways it can be interpreted. Like, no, you got out of bed, you washed some dishes, you hoovered the hallway, like whatever it is that you're doing. I think it kind of seeing the smaller things that you're doing day to day that you're still doing and you're still making an effort for. And I think when we think about productivity, it's not always having something at the end of it. I think it's like also the process of doing something can be really good for you and good for your thinking. And I think doing that when you're alone doing that is it also kind of allows you time to think about what you're doing, but also your mind can wander a little bit. Maybe think about, you know, what works best for you and how is spending time like doing the things I like good for me.
I think
just becoming more aware.
The one question I guess that a lot of students might want to know is, in a time where they might be alone, like physically, but having to kind of like integrate themselves into being with other people, how can they be themselves within that? Because I think it's really difficult to kind of be like what is my purpose was to go to university, physically go on campus, do my work, but now I'm like on my own, but then I'm always with people as well. How can you separate, you know, being and enjoying your own company as opposed to like being with people and constantly being on social media and all of that? Like, I don't know if that's a question that
I think it's that there's that balance thing that you talked about, Stella, because I think all of these things require a bit of balance. And one of the things I've noticed working alongside particularly art students is this need to always like look at other people's work, but it's like a toothache or something. It's almost painful because it's a comparison thing. And I think there's a sense in which artists, well, maybe I'm generalizing, but feel like very vulnerable about showing their work, but also quite competitive, not competitive, but they compare themselves a lot. When people are posting on social media, I've created this, look at this beautiful piece of artwork, I've written this, actually you can expose yourself to that all day and you can be really worn thin, I think, on your own sense of what you do well, and you can see all these other people producing all these beautiful pieces or doing all these really interesting things around art, and you can feel like, oh, I have nothing, who am I as an artist, what do I bring, because you've spent all the time being fed by this comparison thing. And I think the oneliness of just rooting yourself in, this is who I am, this is what I bring, this is what I'm wrestling with, is important, because it does help you, I think, as an artist to grow and develop. And then I think when you're grounded, you're able to connect with people much better in a much better way. One of my friends is a man called Brother Sam, who's this incredible man who's just got the most joyous face in the whole world. He, when I was wrestling with something once around like just feeling quite competitive with some people, and just it was a bit of a conflict situation, he said roots down, walls down. Like if your is kind of being rooted, being grounded in the sense of yourself, then your walls come down, because all your energy is invested in this stuff that's important to you being grounded. You haven't got the time to kind of build up these barriers and kind of this prickly competitive thing. And that's been really useful for me to be like, to have that sense of my core and myself and investing in that, so that I'm not building up all these kind of barriers, or, you know, thinking, oh, they're doing all this stuff, or oh, that's brilliant and I have nothing. So I think a balance in the time for yourself and being with other people is like super important.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
I think so. Thinking about, obviously, we've just had Easter break, we've just had the Easter weekend, you know, Good Friday and Easter Sunday, and I think now is usually the time when everyone's getting back onto campus and, you know, reconnecting with everybody, catching up with everyone, and having those conversations about what you've been up to, things like that. So I think, obviously, with things as they are, having that reconnection or having those conversations is like, it's quite challenging and quite different, and you might not feel that there's been a big change. So I think it's I want to have like maybe a little conversation about how people can reconnect still, and how like we can motivate ourselves to kind of push ahead in this like final stretch of the last term.
Yeah.
And like ways that you can do things for yourself and how oneness might benefit that.
I think so basically, taking it back to our experiences again, having that physical move, or like that physical, like, you know, coming from home to university is what kind of gave us that feeling of a fresh start, or like a new start. So I guess the conversation would be, how can you do that when you might not be able to physically do that? That makes sense?
Yeah.
You might not physically feel like it's a fresh start or a new opportunity to tackle the term, but how can you do that from home in a space that hasn't changed? But how can we make that happen?
Yeah. So yeah, should we like maybe have some ideas about how people might be able to reconnect with each other?
Yeah.
So Ruth, have you got any suggestions?
Change your bed sheets. I feel like that's a good thing, though. That always makes me feel like, oh, it's something new and fresh. Like physical things that you can change in your space. So like changing your bed sheets. Like new term for me is always like new pencils, or like the smell of new pencil cases. Or is there a way of like replicating that at home? Can you dig out some stuff that you haven't used for a while and put it on a desk or a space and kind of say, this is a marker of a beginning for me. Yeah. Bed sheet, all I've got.
I think that's a really good one. I think what you picked up on there, I think, which is really important to take away from that, is focusing on the things that you can change. So things that you can make new. So like changing your bed sheets, or I don't know, rearranging the books on the shelf. You know, focusing on things that you can change, that you have control over, that will help you feel more comfortable and make you feel like something is different and that there's a sense of something new, which I think we usually get this time of year, because obviously seasons have changed, summer term has started, and I think socially those changes kind of happen.
Yeah.
But I think at home it's a bit more difficult because it isn't the same.
Yeah. I think it's also a mentality for me. I think knowing that I had to be on campus at a certain time and having to like wake up and get ready to leave to get to uni for a certain time, like those things kind of helped me, the little like pointers. So I don't know if there's a way of, well, I can like mentally get myself to that place of, you know, creating this structure. That is something that helps me. So I would suggest having some sort of like routine that makes you feel like you're going to work, or you're going to uni, or you're about to like, you know, do something with your day. And then like having that as like part of your daily routine, and then at the end of the day you can set something nice for yourself to do that makes you feel like you're relaxing after a hard day's work.
I think that's really good, because it's like, you know, for example, so obviously the time started again. So I think it's, you know, things like, you know, getting up at the same time that you'd usually get up, you know, get ready the same way. And I think actually go through the process of getting ready and get changed, and like wear the clothes you would wear if you were going to uni. Kind of put yourself in that mental state of mind where you're actually getting ready for something.
Yeah, for my children, we're homeschooling at the moment. It's the Easter holidays, but when it's not the Easter holidays, I've printed off a little sheet. I'm like bad Mrs. Trunchbull or something, I don't know, but there's like before 10 a.m, there's 3 things. You have to get dressed, you have to have your breakfast, and you have to go to bed. And I think those things like that is what we're going to do. And when it's the holidays, I don't care if you stay in your pajamas all day, but when it's school time, you're going to do things. And actually, I think helps them, that helps me. And like you said, sort of having like an approach where it is, this is the structured day and this is what we're going to do. And John, like getting dressed, I think those things actually are quite important for switching your mind, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think because if I like wake up in the morning and I wake up a bit earlier, like I'll be sitting in my pajamas, I'll have my cup of tea, I'll have my cereal, and I'll be like, okay, I really need to go and shower now. I need to start my day. And I think the process of, it's kind of like, it's almost a bit ritualistic, you know, there's like processes you go through to make yourself ready. And I think it's mental as well as physical. Because like, you know, having the shower, getting yourself dressed, like prepares me for the day. And it makes me ready for it.
Yeah, I think having like that mentality is probably the biggest thing, because for a lot of people, they've probably been in the same space for such a long time and then had the break where they've enjoyed the time off. But it is that switching on and switching off that's the hardest thing to do. And I guess the advice that we're all trying to give is, you know, create something for yourself, reflect on yourself and see what works for you, and create something that works for you in that way. So that you're tackling the things that you want to do this term, so that you're looking at it with a fresh perspective, in order to get to the best place that you can be within this term. Yeah. I don't know if you had any other questions for Ruth?
I think what might be good is maybe how students can still get in touch with Faith and Reflection, and what things you might have in place to kind of help students kind of acknowledge that change has happened, and maybe to help them kind of keep on top of their motivation and things.
Yeah, so we're still on all our social media platforms. So we're on here, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we've got an email address which I can add somewhere at some point because I can't remember. So we were all contactable by that. We're trying, we're still hosting a virtual global cafe, which is for international students. So any international students who are still at home can access that via Zoom, and we're still doing that, I don't know, on Wednesdays. I can't remember. Again, that's on our like
information.
There's no useful information here. I'm like completely away with the fairies. And if you want to contact us, we are around to kind of listen in. We're happy to phone people and have a conversation over the phone and just be that listening ear. And if people have got ideas of stuff that would be useful, then we're really open to thinking about that. I think what we're trying to do is support as well students who are from particular faith communities who can't access physical worship spaces. So we know that's not relevant to everyone, but those students who, you know, are used to going to synagogue or a mosque or a church building and can't access those at the moment, we're trying to signpost people to useful resources online, and also potentially people who just would like to have a little look at what's that like what is it like to see a Jewish community worshipping, what does that mean, what does that look like, so people broadening their horizons. And I think that's a part of what we as a team are really keen for people to do at university is not necessarily to convert to a specific religion, but to just broaden their horizons in terms of their own soul and spirituality. So we're trying to put some of that stuff online so people can kind of have a little sneak peek of what goes on. But any ideas of stuff that people have, we're really open to hearing them.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's great. Thank you so much. I think we didn't have this question, but we've kind of answered it, haven't we?
I think it'd be good to kind of maybe go around. So the question is, like, what's one thing that you could do today to help you reconnect with either family or friends, or like people that you would usually see day to day at uni or day to day in general? So something I want to do today is I'm really missing everybody at the office. Obviously, we've had Easter break. I haven't seen people's faces. So I'm going to try and video call everyone this week to kind of just have a catch up, see how everyone's doing, how everyone's break was. And that's going to be my way of kind of reconnecting and initiating that like fresh start.
Yeah, I think I would say what I was saying earlier, which is just creating a structure and a routine.
And I guess part of it is like just getting back into the routine of talking to the guys in the office and stuff. And that kind of, yeah, for me, that's like getting back into it, having that fresh start again, and trying to sink myself into like my sense of normalcy. Yes.
Yeah.
What about you?
I've made a nice to-do list today. I love a to-do list. That always feels like the beginning of term. So I've written out all the things that are in my mind that I keep, you know, wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, I haven't done that, or I need to think about that. And I've just put them on a piece of paper, and that's my list, and that's my kind of start of term. This is what I need to cover.
Yeah, that's really
that's
good.
great.
Kind of lays everything out, gives some things, and gives it some structure.
Yeah.
Just so you don't feel like you're kind of like floating around.
Yeah.
I think for anyone watching, if you have tips on how to reconnect, or how to kind of, any tips you have on fresh starts and kind of staying motivated, it is the last term and the summer is coming. The weather is so good. So yeah, if you've got any tips, also if you're someone who's kind of really good at like structuring your day, or is really good at staying motivated, share some tips with some friends, or share them with us, and we can share them on the Small Things Matter channels as well.
Yeah. So thank you, Ruth, for joining us and giving us so many lovely, amazing tips. And yeah, I think the next live stream is on Monday. Next week.
Lovely.
Well, have a great day.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Bye.
No problem.
See you.